an Israeli spy operation in Iran, a high stakes betrayal, and Trump's shocking declaration of victory. Did the US and Israel really cripple Iran's nuclear program, or is there something much darker hiding beneath the surface? The truth will leave you questioning everything. In a shocking revelation that could shift the balance of power in the Middle East, President Donald Trump recently confirmed that the United States and Israel had launched a series of devastating airstrikes against Iran's nuclear facilities. The attack, which was carried out in the dead of night, left the world reeling with questions. Questions that not only challenge the credibility of international powers, but also stir fears of a looming all-out war. According to Trump, these strikes were so precise, so potent, that Israel's intelligence services, immediately after the operation, deployed agents to assess the damage, ensuring that Iran's nuclear ambitions had been shattered for good. But the reality that followed the dust of these bombs was far murkier than anyone could have imagined. While Trump claimed victory, stating that Iran's nuclear program had been set back for decades, others, including U.S. intelligence agencies, gave a much more somber assessment. A report emerged, quietly slipping into the shadows of global news, revealing that these strikes only managed to delay Iran's nuclear capabilities by a matter of months, not years, as Trump had boldly proclaimed. The implications of this discrepancy are staggering. How could the world's most powerful nation, with all its military might, fail to fully dismantle Iran's nuclear program? Were the strikes truly as successful as claimed, or were they merely a fleeting tactical victory, masking a much larger geopolitical failure? But the mystery deepens further. Despite the apparent success of the strike, Israel, the very nation Trump claims to have worked in unison with, denied knowing any details about the aftermath of the attack. This stark contradiction between the words of Trump and the silence from Israeli officials raises an unsettling question. Was the attack as calculated as it appeared, or was there more to this covert operation than meets the eye? Was it all part of a much larger, more intricate plan, or were powerful forces at play, manipulating the narrative to obscure the truth? Iran, of course, wasted no time condemning the strikes, calling them an act of unprovoked aggression that would haunt both the United States and Israel for years to come. Their leaders, backed by the fervor of a nation already accustomed to facing outside threats, vowed that this aggression would only steel their resolve to push forward with their nuclear ambitions, no matter the cost. The world watched with bated breath as these two powerhouses, Israel and Iran, prepared for what could very well be the beginning of a new chapter in their long-standing rivalry. But even as the rhetoric between Israel and Iran grew heated, there was one unsettling detail that many missed: the silence of the international community. Some nations spoke out, but few were bold enough to challenge the global giants at play. Meanwhile, the global diplomatic stage remained in turmoil. Israel's intelligence agencies, in a rare move, issued statements distancing themselves from the aftermath of the attacks. They claimed no knowledge of the covert operations that had been carried out in Iran's nuclear heartland, despite earlier reports suggesting that Israel had a direct hand in orchestrating the strikes. Was this just a matter of political distance, or was something far deeper at play here, something that no one was ready to confront? And then there was Trump's unwavering stance. Despite conflicting intelligence reports, he insisted that the attacks had crippled Iran's nuclear program so severely that Iran would be unable to continue its pursuit of nuclear weapons for years to come. But is this truly the case, or is it merely a line that Trump clings to, hoping to hold on to a narrative of victory amidst the chaos? Was this attack the masterstroke that many claimed, or is it merely a temporary setback in a much larger, much more dangerous game? The situation continued to unfold, with each new revelation painting a picture of international relations as fragile as the peace that had, until recently, existed. Israel's reaction to the strikes raised eyebrows. Did they truly not know the scale of the operation, or were they playing a much deeper game, using this attack as a means of spinning the global narrative in their favor? With each passing day, the tension grew, not just between Israel and Iran, but between the global powers. each one vying for dominance in the Middle East. As Trump stood firm, confidently declaring that Iran had been set back decades, the world was left to question, is this just the beginning of a new, terrifying phase in the Middle East? Or is it simply another chapter in a long, drawn out war for nuclear supremacy? With new intelligence reports hinting at the temporary nature of the attacks, the world waited, wondering if this was the start of something more devastating, or if, in reality, it was just a fleeting moment of triumph, destined to be undone in the coming months. As tensions mount, the question that remains on everyone's mind is this: with global power players pulling strings from behind the scenes, who is really in control? What happens when narratives collide, when facts are twisted, and when the entire world is left grappling with a sense of betrayal, confusion, and uncertainty? This is not just a war between Israel and Iran anymore. It's a battle for control of the very narrative that shapes our world, and its consequences could be far more far-reaching than anyone is willing to admit. Will the truth about the attack ever come to light? Or will the shadows of deception continue to hang over the Middle East, leaving us all to wonder just how deep the conspiracy really goes? The ripple effects of the attack on Iran's nuclear facilities were far from contained within the borders of the Middle East. As the dust began to settle, a far more sinister and troubling narrative emerged, not just about the military strategy, but about the intelligence networks, the covert operations, and the intricate webs of deceit that have become synonymous with this conflict. Amid the military chaos, a far darker story unfolded, one that would raise the stakes of this already high-tension situation to unforeseen levels. This wasn't just a question of military power. It was a story of secrets, espionage, and the fragility of trust in the highest echelons of power. As soon as the dust of the airstrikes had settled, the world was forced to confront the most unsettling discovery of all: a leak of sensitive information that threatened to expose a massive breach within the intelligence community itself. It wasn't just that the United States had launched an attack on Iran. No. The real bombshell came when it was revealed that a CIA analyst, Asif William Rahman, had gone rogue, spilling the very secrets that were meant to remain hidden behind layers of deception and coded messages. For months, Rahman had secretly leaked classified documents that detailed the very specifics of the attack on Iran, from the precise locations to the strategic goals. This wasn't some isolated incident. It was a full-scale betrayal of the highest order. Rahman, an analyst trusted with top-secret information, had used his access to expose critical details about one of the most contentious military operations in modern history. What made this breach even more catastrophic was not just the exposure of sensitive military tactics, but the fact that Rahman's motives weren't tied to money, espionage, or the typical motivations we associate with traitors. His betrayal wasn't about financial gain or being recruited by enemy intelligence agencies. Instead, it stemmed from something far more dangerous: his moral compass. Rahman, driven by a profound belief that the military actions being taken against Iran would cause irreparable harm to innocent lives, chose to leak these secrets, hoping to force those in power to reconsider. It wasn't a game for him. It was a desperate plea for ethical accountability in a world governed by shadows and secrecy. The leak sparked a firestorm within the intelligence community, forcing the CIA and other intelligence agencies to confront a series of uncomfortable questions. How could such a breach have happened? How could a trusted analyst, privy to some of the most sensitive military secrets in the world, have taken it upon himself to single-handedly reveal these details to the world? And perhaps more troubling, what does it say about the state of intelligence security when such a massive lapse in judgment and security can take place? For many, the scandal surrounding Rahman's leak wasn't just about the information he exposed. It was about the moral rot that had clearly festered within the system, a system that was meant to protect the very lives it had put at risk. As the world grappled with the fallout from the leak, the consequences of this breach began to echo through the corridors of power. The revelation of this betrayal caused a deep rift between longtime allies, shaking the foundation of trust that had held the United States and Israel together for years. Suddenly, the meticulously crafted narrative of the joint operation against Iran seemed to be unraveling. and both countries found themselves facing accusations of misleading the public and even their own people. The leak didn't just expose critical military information. It exposed distrust between the very institutions that had been working together on a global scale. But beyond the breach in security, this moment of crisis also forced the international community to confront a harsh reality: the fragility of alliances in the face of hidden agendas. In an era of constant surveillance and high-stakes geopolitical maneuvering, how much can we really trust the narratives put forth by world powers? If a single analyst could bring down an entire operation with the swipe of his hand, how secure is the world we live in? The implications of Rahman's actions went far beyond just one mission or one breach of trust. They cast doubt on the very nature of global diplomacy and the forces that guide it. As the leak unfolded, questions began to arise about whether Israel had been fully transparent with its allies regarding the extent of their involvement in the attack on Iran. Was Israel truly unaware of the specific details of the operation, or had they known all along? Were they complicit in the leaks themselves, using the chaos to cover up their own hidden agendas? The confusion only deepened as statements from Israeli officials contradicted earlier reports. Was this a deliberate attempt to distance themselves from the fallout, or was it a desperate move to protect their own interests in an ever-evolving geopolitical landscape? Meanwhile, Iran's response to the attacks remained as defiant as ever. The country's leadership doubled down on its determination to continue its nuclear program, now viewing the attacks not just as an external threat, but as a rallying cry to resist the West's interference in their sovereign affairs. With global powers aligning themselves on opposing sides and alliances beginning to fray, Iran saw an opportunity to strengthen its position on the world stage, asserting that they would not be bullied into submission. But amidst the political posturing and military posturing, the question remained: was this just the beginning of a larger, more devastating conflict, or would it ultimately fade into the backdrop of history, a fleeting moment of tension that would soon be forgotten in favor of more pressing matters? What seemed like a tactical victory had suddenly become something far more complex, a battle for control not just over territory, but over the narrative itself, as global powers scrambled to assert their influence, both on the ground and in the media. In the midst of all this turmoil, one thing was clear: the stakes had never been higher. Every move, every decision was now a gamble, and no one was certain of the final outcome. Would the betrayal of one analyst lead to a global reordering of alliances? Or would it fade into the shadows, leaving behind a trail of confusion and uncertainty in its wake? Only time would tell. But the truth of the matter was this: the world had entered a new, darker era of geopolitics, one where betrayal, secrecy, and espionage are no longer the exception, but the norm.